And welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly hangout where Masons from around the country get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The usual disclaimer applies. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely those of the participants and do not reflect any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Please keep your conversations open to the public and on the level. You all know me. My name is Jason Richards. I am the Sitting Worshipful Master of Acacia Lodge number 16 in Clifton, Virginia, as well as a member of the Colonial Lodge number 1821 in Washington, D.C. Moving on to Brother Robert for introductions.
Hey guys, RJ here, Waukegan Lodge number 78 in Waukegan, Illinois, where I am a past master and sitting secretary. Thanks.
All right, Mike the intern.
Hey, Mike the intern here from Village Lodge number 274 in Burton, Ohio.
All right, Mike, glad to have you with us. Brother Juan Sepulveda.
Hello, Juan Sepulveda here from Orange Blossom Lodge number 80 in sunny Kissimmee, Florida, the host of the Winding Stairs Freemasonry podcast.
All right, and last but not least, from the MMC Mobile Masonic Command, Brother Jonathan Thomas Ruark. Who's muted?
Okay, I'm unmuted now. Howdy, howdy. Driving back with the family from Hershey Park, so thanks for having me.
We appreciate your soulless dedication. All right, let's get right in to Masonic news. First up, on Brother Chris Hodap's blog, we have past master secretary commits suicide in lodge's parking lot after turning in the lodge's checkbook for an internal audit. Mike the intern, what have you got on this?
Let's see. He apparently there was some missing funds in the lodge coffers, and they invited the treasurer to show up and turn in the checkbook. And when he did, he said, I forgot something out in the car, went back out, and died of suicide of a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is it's very unfortunate to hear news like this. Of course, it doesn't do much of a service to the fraternity, but it's a very difficult thing to talk about. There's a whole bunch of topics mixed into this one that are unpleasant, are unsavory, from the misappropriation of funds to taking one's life, to you name it. So it's a very sad day for this lodge. It's very unfortunate. This is the year in which they were celebrating their 200-year anniversary.
Oh, wow.
So this should have been a year of celebration, and instead the press coverage that they will be having for the rest of the year is going to be related to this unfortunate news. One thing that I found interesting in this article is that instead of the local police doing the investigation for this, it's going to be headed by the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, especially because there are a lot of brothers of this lodge that are members of the fraternity. I mean, members of the local police department that are members of the fraternity, including one of their high officers. So to avoid any kind of impression of conflict of interest or anything of that nature, they decided to then give the investigation over to the GBI. And one of the things also that happened is when this past secretary was summoned to bring the checkbook to the lodge, a police officer was also asked to be present. And if I'm not mistaken, it's one of the brothers who was a cop who was present just in case. And when this past secretary went to the car and emerged out with a gun, it's purported that they asked him to put the gun down several times before he actually took his own life. So, yep. So what?
Wow. Yeah, that's just sad news all around for the Masonic community. You know, if there were financial irregularities going on in the lodge, of course, you know, we've had a string of instances, especially over the last year or two, where we've had brethren and treasurers who have been embezzling funds from lodges, and then even if that's the case, then a brother who felt like he was so backed into a corner, or for whatever reason, we won't speculate here, decided to take his own life, then that's just a shock and a terrible thing as well.
It's really interesting. I mean, like, as a secretary who has done treasurer work before, think about how easy it is. Let's say your lodge goes PayPal, and you got a PayPal card that the secretary keeps because he's got to buy stuff. What if he runs short every once in a while in his personal funds? Maybe he uses that card and then just like turns over cash to the secretary, like, oh, like, I don't have a receipt, but I had to use it for whatever, and you're not telling, or whatever. And then it just balloons into this big thing. And before you know it, you're embarrassed. You can't pay the money back. And who knows what happens with this stuff. But there's a lot of I can't always say that it's a thievery thing, right? Like, what if it's just accidental, like with the best intentions, but now you're dug so much in a hole that your integrity can never be restored in your own mind, and so you only have one option. It's really weird to me how that all went down, and I think it'll be, I don't want to say interesting to see how that came about, but it will be eye-opening to see how that came about, and hopefully we take what we learned from the incident and really learn from it as far as what we can do to not let that kind of thing happen again. And not just the money thing, but this brother, it kind of feels like Jason said, he was backed into a corner, and it's a shame that he felt that way.
And I also think about the fact that if this brother needed the money so badly that he resorted to take it from the lodge funds, it should never get to that point. Like, a brother's needs should never be so much that he would resort to, wronging the fraternity. And I'm not justifying his actions because I don't know what his actions are. There's a lot of incomplete, components of this story. And it has been very interesting to me to see the discussion happening in the Winding Stairs Freemasonry group, because I shared the story without leading the witness. Basically, I put the post and I said, this is very sad, and I didn't try to say too much about it, and I wanted to see what the discussion that evolved was. And you have brothers that are very passionate and instantly said, this is cowardice, for example. Other people say, he's guilty, obviously, because he took his own life. And other people came to say he didn't go through a Masonic trial. He wasn't tried before the law of the land either. Therefore, he is innocent until proven guilty. So the only thing we know is that it was a brother that was in despair and took his own life. We still have to a degree, respect him.
Well, and Juan, not to cut you off there, but I think another point that was raised, I think bears repeating here, is just the commentary on how devastating mental illness can be and how devastating it is in today's culture. Because I think obviously we can't say for sure that played a role, but if you are alive today, chances are mental illness has touched you through either your own experiences or someone close to you, and it's just very, very debilitating, and it's often hard to see.
Yeah, and people that are not suffering at its hands will have very little opportunity to really understand the place that they're in. Like empathy is a difficult thing to develop for depression and things like that, because it's so foreign to the way that we feel. You know, if you don't suffer of depression, based on my some personal experiences, I can tell you that it's almost irrational how deeply it affects people. But I wish this brother's family and the lodge members, I wish them a lot of solace and strength, because it's difficult, and hopefully we don't come across other news like this.
Yeah, it's always hard when things like this hit the Masonic fraternity, and they really hit home to all of us. So the best thing we can do as brothers is watch out for each other. Whether it comes to responsibilities in the lodge or just taking care of each other as friends and as people. So moving on to a little bit lighter Masonic news tonight. No, it's not a Past Bastard article. It is a Masonic painting of Robert Burns worth about £2 million sterling that was bought at auction for under £1,000, the owner reveals. Mike, what you got for me on this?
So what happened here, this guy, has bought this a number of years ago, I guess, for under £1,000 at an auction. He won't be specific about it, but in any case, right. In any case, he believes that it should be in Scotland. He's trying to work with some people over there to see if anybody be interested in buying it. He's not really planning on putting it on a huge market to get bids and so forth for it, but he does apparently want to get it to Scotland for public display somehow. And what else I read about this, we can't see it clearly in any of the pictures, but apparently there's plenty of Masonic symbols and possibly numbers that could relate to lodges, I guess, in the imagery in the background of this painting. So, and it's actually not necessarily an original. They called it the fourth original. I believe, I know it was like fourth something, but it's, in any case, it actually was originally thought to be a fake, or not a fake, copy.
Well, and a lot of earlier paintings did have copies made of them, before you could scan them in and make prints of them, etc. So that would not surprise me really at all. But it's a really neat find. It's very interesting. Of course, we celebrate Robert Burns Day with Burns Suppers in January. He's the poet laureate of Freemasonry. He fathered 27 kids.
Yeah. So you guys know that. Are you guys familiar with ceremonies, Venus ceremonies? There's a Robert Burns Venus ceremony somewhere, and it's probably amazing.
I cannot say I have ever been privy to such festivities.
Me neither.
But Robert, it surprises me very little that you know about that.
Oh, yeah.
So moving on, our final piece of Masonic news tonight is the call for submissions for the David R. Bedwell Memorial Masonic Renewal Essay Competition from the Masonic Renewal Committee of the Conference of Grand Masters of North America. And as soon as I share my screen again, I will talk a little bit about this essay contest. So essentially, the Masonic Renewal Committee from the Conference of Grand Masters of North America is a committee that's essentially designed and chartered by the Conference of Grand Masters to take a look at the fraternity today and to make some headway as far as a strategic plan to better the fraternity and to renew the fraternity, as it were. I know I'm bastardizing the language quite a bit, but that's generally what they're about. John and I know a couple of the members on the committee, and they are soliciting input to that, and that input is in the form of an essay contest. The competition is titled "Concept of Masonic Renewal: What does it mean to you now and in the future?" So they're really looking, I think, for the craft's insight into the concept of Masonic renewal and how we would go about, I think, instilling renewal in the fraternity. So the essays must be original works between 1,000 and 1,500 words. Prizes will be awarded cash prizes, by the way, for first, second, and third places, of course, at the discretion of the judging panel. One essay accepted from each author, and send in your essays no later than November 30th, 2017. So you've got a good bit of time now. So get those in. You got like 5 months. So go ahead and put your money where your mouth is, as far as if you've been complaining about, oh man, if this fraternity were under my rule and governance, it'd be so much better. Go ahead and tell the Conference of Grand Masters exactly what they can do to make the fraternity better, and maybe they'll pay you for it. So
I'm
it's
hoping to get paid.
a pretty good idea. What's up?
I'm hoping to get paid for it. I'm writing one.
What would just be so great is if we could just say, hey, watch the show.
It's like 3 words. It's not that much.
Watch this show. Done.
Oh, there are no
I was
egos
gonna have
in
a serious
Freemasonry,
one.
and there are certainly no egos on the Masonic Roundtable.
I had a serious one lined up. It wasn't going to be that short, but it was going to be close, which was when I was on vacation here. We could replace the stewards with this machine, again, that you hit a button and 2 pancakes come out. It's a pancake machine. It's amazing.
That would work at my lodge.
Wow. Yeah, you wouldn't have to worry about membership numbers nearly as much, because, I mean, you get paper plates, you don't have to worry about anyone washing the dishes. Like, you get a Keurig machine, brethren can make their own coffee. Like,
Yeah.
or we go a step further, and you know how McDonald's is making those like automated cashiers? Like, we just put some of those in, and brethren can just like, order whatever they want.
Could you imagine like walking the candidate to like a area in the lodge, and you turn him toward it and you go, push the red button, and then like, my brother starts a lecture with like moving slides, and you're like, let us now go to the West Gate.
So it's like one of those like audio tours, like when you're
Which is more strongly
touring
guided,
Alcatraz.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that would be perfect. We should do that.
Press play on the recording here. One step away from the Northern Masonic jurisdiction of the Scottish Rite.
Oh, this is one step ahead, right? Because like as it talks about things, it would be like the square, and then like off in the distance, this animatronic square just like lights up, boom.
Bing!
But like the lighting like off, so it's like when it talks about the square, like it's delayed, it lights up late, or it's gotta be Masonic, in non-functional at some level.
A bunch of the lights are burned out.
There you go.
So yeah, and that's all about making the fraternity better. So write an essay, send it in. Make sure you proofread it, because they do say something specifically where they say, while the content of the essay is of primary concern, proper grammar and spelling will also be factors in the judging. Meanwhile, their title for their essay contest didn't make grammatical sense. But anyway, we're not gonna dwell on that. Let's get into tonight's topic, which is, of course, lodge schools of instruction for officers. So when we take a look at lodge officer training programs, jumping in line is not something that I think we would all agree that you should do without any sort of heads up or any sort of leadership or mentorship or training. And the great news is that a lot of the jurisdictions with which we're involved have training programs designed specifically for their officers. So, Mike, the intern, why don't you start us off by talking a little bit about the Grand Lodge of Ohio and what they do?
Okay, well, the Grand Lodge of Ohio has several things that they do. There's they have Freemason University, which can be which anyone can get to through freemasonryuniversity.com. It's a series of different videos on the craft in general. This isn't necessarily just leadership, but there are, plenty of videos there to check out on ways you, at least in Ohio, that you can better yourself in Masonry. And now there's also another educational program that they actually have had live courses for I want to say at least the last year and a half. They haven't had any, but it's a group called Masons Lead Better, and you can get to that because there's a lot of good resources there at masonsleadbetter.com. And from what I saw, they have some good old blog entries and so forth, and a lot of good recommended reading materials, stuff even on their site that's written by brothers from Ohio that have published works on there. Then for just generally everyone in that's in Grand Lodge of Ohio district or jurisdiction rather, they have these online courses for that you can get certifications for, which by the way I have all three. There's one for there's 5 courses to get the Masonic Code certificate, which is basically tests after test of everything that's written in Ohio Masonic Code. And then there is the Officers Manuals course, and those Officers Manuals are not bad if you're looking at the first and the third one. The third one covers everyone's duties, whether it's the Worshipful Master or the Junior Steward. It covers everybody in between. The first book is good for just anyone to even read it. It talks about things like the proper attire for lodge, aprons, gloves, jewels, things like that. Punctuality, what you do if you arrive late, what visitors should do, lodge prayer. There's a whole lot in this first book. The second book is just informative in general for the officers. So they are better informed when they receive the requests from Grand Lodge for these. And that's the Masonic charities that the Grand Lodge sponsors. It spells out in detail what they are, and where the money is actually applied to for those. Then the third course is the Ancient Charges. Again, just to test, and those Ancient Charges are actually available in the Masonic Code book as well. And now also throughout the year, they'll have one of their annual Deacons and Wardens classes, which actually any brother can attend. They don't have to be an officer. They don't have to be one of the deacons or wardens of the lodge. They just have to let the district know that they're coming to that one, so that because they actually provide lunches and things like that. So it's just an RSVP. But then there's the annual Past Masters Conference, which that's when your incoming Worshipful Masters get conferred with their past masters. And then there's, during that, while the incoming masters are getting conferred with the past master's degree there, there's a secretary's class, a warden's class, deacon's class, which those I don't have experience in, because those ones you do have to be one of those officer positions. However, they also have the LEO, or Lodge Education Officers class, which since I am the Lodge Education Officer for Village Lodge, I have been to that, and it can be quite informative. It's also quite interesting to hear some of the older brothers who have been doing lodge education forever come complaining about how they don't get support from their lodges to do lodge education. But in any case, that's pretty much all I have on what they do. Then there's, well, obviously, there is, observing your brothers as you go up through the, up through the line in your lodge. But other than that, there's not much.
The whole OJT and lead by example.
Yeah.
Learning methods. Lead by examples of what not to do.
Yes.
Luckily, we haven't really had that problem in Acacia. But John, want to talk a little bit about Virginia?
Sure, I can jump in, but I think it's really cool what Mike was saying about having a different class for each position. That's really unique. I think that's really cool, and it would be really neat to see what the difference is that that they cover in that material. So as far as Virginia goes, I know that two basic concepts come to mind. I don't know if it's a requirement, but it's strongly suggested that when you're a warden, a junior or senior warden, that you take what they call a Subordinate Lodge Officer Training, or SLOT, S-L-O-T.
Dun, 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 dun.
The SLOT training, and what that is, it's just a couple-hour sit-down breakfast. Oh, Jason's got a copy of that manual up.
Yeah. So essentially, what happens is the district education officers get this manual. It's hugely informative, written by one of our past grandmasters, who is absolutely incredible. And during the SLOT training, from what I've heard, because I've never actually attended it, the DEOs go through and pretty much read this line by line.
Well, if you didn't go through it, obviously they failed. So
it's okay. My DEO is not watching the show, so
that's true.
I'm safe.
It is informative. It's actually a really good manual because it's basically a cookbook. It just lays out, here's what you need to do. Here's how to plan your year. It's basically fill in the blanks. Who are your officers? Who are your representatives? It really it handholds you through the whole process. And if you were to follow this book step by step, you really couldn't really screw up a whole lot outside of anything in your control. The last thing that I wanted to add, in Virginia, they also have once or twice a year they have these divisional leadership classes, DLCs they call them.
Division Leadership Conference. Yep.
Leadership Conference. Thank you. And they are of lesser value to me, but what they do offer you is not only a chance to meet people outside of your district and in the general division of your whole state, but also meet your Grand Lodge counterparts. So, if you know that you're going to be 2 years, you can also meet the person in Grand Line who will be during your year, and you can kind of see what their theme is, and get to know them face to face and all that. So it really helps with some strategic planning, some networking, and areas of them. Well, I like also the format they have is you do go into a separate classroom with each of your counterparts, so you can actually have more intimate, maybe you and 20 guys can sit down and really ask the hard questions about the relationship you have with your Grand Lodge officer. Virginia offers that. I think they do pretty well.
Yeah, so that Virginia does some things well, and I think they're moving in the right direction. The SLOT manual, like you said, John, is packed full of incredible information. But when it comes to the division leadership conferences, one of the things, and we'll get to this a little bit later. One of the things I wish that our Grand Lodge did would be to revamp the division leadership conference so it actually teaches leadership and situational leadership and servant leadership, fundamentals and skills. Because right now what happens in the DLC is everybody goes in, and then the Grandmaster gets up and does a big speech, and a couple other brethren get up and do big speeches on the state of the craft and the state of the Grand Lodge, You know, all of this stuff that you could, you know, easily read in, you know, a digest or an email. And then you have an educational program, which may be hit or miss depending on how many times you've seen Cleopatra's Needle, which is a wonderful presentation. But when you get to about the 10th time through, it's like, okay. But what we're seriously lacking, I think, in lodges today are the skills needed to actually run an organization and balance difficult personalities. And I'm not saying there are difficult personalities in Freemasonry. I'd never say that whatsoever. But you know, leadership is an actual skill that you have to develop competencies toward, and giving brethren specific examples, scenarios, and skills to take back with them to their lodges, I think would do Freemasonry in Virginia at least a great service. Now I will step off my my soapbox there, and I will say, hey Juan, are you around and able to talk about what's going on in Florida?
I am. I'm sorry I didn't have my camera turned on. Darn it. All the funny faces I made. No one will ever know. Well, in Florida, we do have a lodge officer training, and it's accessible to all brothers through the Grand Lodge portal. And basically, it's divided into three modules. And you're provided a study guide that takes you through deeper and deeper topics about Masonic leadership or lodge leadership. And it starts very basic, just like Brother Mike was saying. It starts with the basic roles, like what is the worshipful master's role, the senior warden, junior warden, seasoned Masons who are not completely clear as to the roles that the brother should have. So here we have that initial, baby steps, basically. So as soon as you become a Master Mason, you can start studying these, and it shows that initiative to make the leadership of your lodge better, if you can. Or basically you're saying, I'm interested in helping out here. So like I mentioned, module 1, we'll go through that. You'll start going deeper into committee so that you understand a little bit more. And I don't know how many of you can agree with me, but when I joined Masonry and someone would show up and be introduced as the, here's a district deputy grand master, I had no clue what they were talking about. Even weeks after, going through the different catechism classes or everything, it was still unclear to me who you would call right honorable or right worshipful or anything like that. So this kind of like
works just fine.
That's what you think. Yeah, you better get it right. I am illustrious, grand, sovereign,
Booba, supreme.
Yeah, supreme. I always
with
think
cheese. I don't know.
I always think of corn and black beans when I think of supreme. Yeah, someone got it.
Think of Motown. Anyway.
Anyway, so you have these various modules that continue to go deeper into lodge officer terrains. For example, the second module goes then into lodge finances, in required reports, in taxation, in local laws, and it talks about public relations and how, as a leader within your lodge, you can utilize the various tools at your disposition. It talks about jurisdiction, how to handle petitions, demits, transfers, affiliations, etc. And whenever you have any kind of doubts about what's the proper thing to do, thank you for sharing that. You can just go to the books and figure out the various procedures to do this. So this is a self-paced program. You take it at your own pace, go module by module. But before you move from one to the next, and each module has 7 lessons, before you go to the next module, you're supposed to give it to your district or zone education officers. So the zone chairman or the of the Masonic Education Committee will take it and grade you, because there's I don't know if you can see that on the screen, but yeah, Jason is showing that there's like a little multiple choice test that you're supposed to fill in and send in to be graded. So they keep
automate that.
Oh my God, yeah. That's in the future. Like that's like beyond 2000, not now. So that's basically it. And then the third one, I have it here: Masonic etiquette, Pledge of Allegiance, how to treat the flag, how to handle education as you pass it along to the newer members, and how that is handled, Masonic law, jurisprudence, and all that kind of stuff. So as you can see, it goes a little bit more complex as you move through the different modules, but it's intended to allow you to take your time and make sure that you understand this before you actually step up and take a leadership role within the lodge. Unfortunately, I can't say that. I don't know. Sometimes the work doesn't show the education. You know, I need to be more diplomatic on this thread here. But
the training is received well in some cases, and not inculcated well in others, perhaps.
Yeah, that's I appreciate you saying it like that.
He used big words, so they're less offensive.
There you go. I like that. But there's no shame in going back to these modules. Like, let's say you actually take a leadership position and you're jumped from junior deacon all the way to, senior warden in a year, which I've heard a couple of brothers go through something like that. There's no shame in going back and reviewing some of these things so that you can feel adequate when it's your time to call the shots and start, getting the gears in motion to change things. So I'm very pleased with what we have here in Florida. I think when applied appropriately, when brothers take it upon themselves to study it and internalize it, it actually bears fruit. So I'm glad with what we have. Of course, there are future steps. We can have video and audio and all that stuff. Call me Grand Lodge and stuff.
Technology, all the things.
Yeah.
Hey, Robert, have things quieted down in your house yet?
Yeah, I think so. I think everything's good. And then my internet decided to start freaking out. So sorry, I was in and out there. Yeah. So Grand Lodge of Illinois is really interesting. It's really kind of a self-motivated system. Now, we do have like sanctioned things, but these things aren't like mandatory. There's nothing that's mandatory. For instance, other Grand Lodges might have a program where in order to take a position like a senior or junior or a master's chair, you're required to take some kind of a class. Now, there's nothing like that in Illinois, and there's no requirement at all. You could be raised today, a warden for a year, and boom, you can be master. Now, that said, there's nothing that's really bad about that, because you're self-motivating. We've got a few things. So we have the Illinois Intender Program, which is largely thanks to Ohio. Many bits and pieces of it have been adapted from Ohio's use of I don't know if it's the same title there. Mike, maybe help me out there.
Yeah, let me look that. I'll get that title for you here.
Sure. So we have the Intender Program, which starts off with a booklet that's called the On the Threshold. You give it to the candidate, and then after each degree, there's a book for that. Now, in the 70s, there was an additional book, and it was called the Craft Fellow, and it was really just a little bit more history, a little bit about the bogus story on 1717, that kind of stuff. Now that takes us through the Intender program, but then we also have a really cool book called the Illinois Grand Lodge Guide for Officer Advancement. Now this is kind of the bread and butter book. This tells us about what's expected of each officer, what's expected of you, both your symbolic duty to the lodge and then also like what is your real duty to the lodge. So stewards, have fun making pancakes, right? Or whatever your jobs are. So brother senior warden, your job is to make the slates for all the degrees. Worshipful master, your job is to sit as the chairman of every committee. You are the tiebreaker vote, that kind of thing. So there's all those kind of things contained within the Officer Guide for Advancement. But again, no specific class. We're looking at just a book. The book isn't long. You can power through it in less than an hour. If you're a slow reader, then an hour and a half. We also, at Grand Lodge sessions once a year, we hold a good gamut of classes at the afternoon session is over. When the morning session ends, we have these afternoon kind of workshops. So we've got a secretary school. So every secretary is mandated to go to a secretary school before he's full-fledged, quote unquote, a secretary. It is recommended to go every year because every year you pick up something new. Maury has some great tools that they have added. We have collaborative committees for the first time in a long time in the state of Illinois. We've got some really great committee guys who are coming through. So we've got 3 main committees: membership, leadership, and education. And each one of them has a specific goal. So, of course, the membership committee does have a goal in teaching our officers how to approach membership. Our leadership committee also teaches leadership for those people. And it's not required, again, but man, it sure is stressed that, hey, as an incoming worshipful master, as an incoming warden, you should definitely attend one of these classes. In the past, it was headed up by Right Worshipful Brother Michael H. Shirley, and he has since turned it over to a good friend of mine, Luciano Acevedo, great guy. And also Brother Michael Blazes, who you may have heard on one of the last episodes of Whence Came You.
Nobody listens to that show.
What's that?
I said nobody listens to that show.
That is a true statement. Yeah.
I'm sorry. When I said nobody, I meant everybody.
Yeah, right. And then we have the Flat Out Education Committee, who really pulls the threads a little bit on what the membership and the leadership can do. And they kind of bring together some of that stuff and package it up nicely. And there's some really good collaboration going on in the last few years, specifically this year. And then, of course, we've got our Grand Lodge workshops that happen every year at Grand Lodge sessions. And we've got a lot of these, what we call independent workshops. So, for instance, one of the ways that some of the local appendant bodies invest in the local lodges, Medina Shriners, for instance, out in Addison, Illinois, they hold a workshop every year for masters and wardens, and it's huge. They get the Grand Lodge committeemen to come out and put on these classes. They host the whole thing. They do a luncheon, and they pay for the whole deal. And what's cool is they get a lot of really great buy-in. So like the Northeastern area specifically is very heavy on education of our leaders and our membership. So that's one of the core missions, is to build what we call confident Master Masons. And so these independent workshops, I mean, any master in the district could be like, next Wednesday, we're holding a leadership event. And boom, that's it. And the DD Jim hears about it, and he's like, hey, guys, I would really appreciate it if you all went to this. So again, kind of self-motivated, not a lot of anything official. And of course, then we have our seasonal instruction schools. So like where I'm from, my district, we have the Lake County Masonic Instruction Club. school of instruction rather, and they just go around to each lodge in the district, or in the area rather, the county, because we kind of the school covers a couple districts, but they teach a lot of the ritual and some of those things. But the biggest thing to take away from this is this kind of self-motivated learning. You can talk about training all day long, but ultimately you don't want to have slideshows that literally you have some guy reading the slides that are right in front of you. I mean, that's pointless. I think you could really
Death by PowerPoint. It's
oh
a
my
real
God,
thing.
yeah. So don't read your PowerPoint slides. Just throw up. But there's just nothing like solid. But there are solid things coming. Like I said, with the collaboration of these different committees that are really getting serious about our membership. I mean, without the training, there's just not membership, right? So like John talks about NPD, non-payment of dues, is one of the biggest killers of Freemasonry. And you look at why these guys are walking away, and largely it's education, whether that's leadership, whether that's historic, whether that's membership, whether that's esoteric, or whatever the case may be. If they're not getting it, they're leaving. So crazy concept here. An institution that's supposed to teach our men, maybe we're starting to teach. So I don't know. It's kind of groundbreaking. It might be a little wild and crazy, but it's happening, and I'm really proud of the work that the committees in Illinois are really starting to work on. Again, I do find it a little bit odd that we don't have official trainings, or like, hey, you have to at least have this, this, and this in order to proceed here and here, or whatever the case may be. The Intender program is official, and that is sanctioned, and that is the way you progress through degrees. But there's nothing as far as officer training that is mandatory.
Oh, interesting.
One thing that I've seen with the Conference of Grand Masters, you have that, basically that exchange of, here's what's working in my state, and here's something we tried and it just doesn't work. And I have seen some grandmasters, some past grandmasters, who have done a lot of work on the education front and standardizing things, and they're very vocal about how proud they are of what they did, but they're not too proud to not share it. So one thing I've seen is that exchange from one state to the other. And of course, you need to edit some things because perhaps the language is not the same, and there are different traditions that are a little bit different. But I have seen that exchange. However, I see that this is a push and pull situation where you have the Grand Master, the Grand Lodge officers perhaps pushing some sort of desired program, but you also have the actual brothers pulling for a specific kind of delivery. So that's why you see the numbers of viewers that perhaps the Masonic Roundtable has, the number of listeners that WentzKU has, the kind of activity that is surrounding all the social media interaction in terms of Masonry. So there is a desire from the base to get more Masonic education, and we're speaking with our cliques. We're actually saying, this is what interests me. I'm spending my time here. Just like Brother Mike was saying, there's the that other what is it? Leading Masons.
Masons lead better.
Yeah, I've seen they have some YouTube videos, and they have different resources on their website. And brothers just click on that. They actually follow the resources available. Now, Grand Lodges have a decision to make. They either embrace this new generation of Masons who are thirsty for knowledge, but they're not necessarily in love with 1.5-inch binders and filling out forms, and perhaps embrace the new technologies that are out there for delivering information and receiving feedback back in return. So
yeah, I would love to see it. So I was actually down at the Grand Lodge building just last week, and I had the honor and privilege of talking to the Grand Lodge officers, and one of the things that they talked about was like training through video, and I think it would just be really beneficial. You guys mentioned a few times the use of a portal. Now, if you had some sort of a portal system where you could access videos that had the same quality and the same user interface as YouTube, that would be really beneficial. Like this Mason's Lead Better. Like I would love for once a month a video to come from Grand Lodge that was produced. Okay, I don't want to see like homemade. I shot this on my crappy camera or cell phone. You know, I'm not looking for world star quality here. I'm looking for.
We're talking at least celebrating the craft style.
Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah. So
the bar is low, but there is a bar.
That's
minimum.
right.
That's the minimum. Right.
I would love to get a monthly video or something. It just says, you know, here's your monthly cool leadership video from Wayne Spooner. That's our membership chair here in Illinois. And it's like Wayne comes on, he's super charismatic, and he just like blasts you with a minute and 20 seconds of boom, 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 killer ideas. You walk away. You're a little bit like, what did I just watch? But you're also empowered somehow, right? Like you grab a few ideas out of this minute and a half, and now all of a sudden you're running with these things. Like that's a key point, and would be so cool to get like a portal with some leadership videos, because ultimately, like John probably's got a good idea of the attention span of today's, like he digs on this stuff, right? Like what the attention span is of the average person. I mean, there's a reason why trailers for movie trailers are like 2 minutes.
It's getting shorter too, by the way.
Yeah, which is really weird, right? Like I see some movie trailers that are 2 minutes, 20 seconds. I see some other ones that are about a minute and 20 seconds. Like look at Marvel and then look at, you know, the independent movie that's going to win an Oscar, you know, next year.
You've also got teaser trailers, which are like
5 seconds. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was. There are categories of those, and just like that, we should think of categories of those in what we do. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to do a little bit more, is having that that just on the fly interaction with brothers. We did a lot of it when we went over to our event in Virginia, where we were doing just Facebook Live. You know, I didn't have to wait to get my makeup done or get my hairdresser. None of that. I just hopped on the video. Boom. Hi guys.
I know it was a break from your usual routine, but you did great.
Yeah. I
Without lipstick. Oh my God.
get stressed, but I have to embrace my graceful aging. No makeup. Hashtag no filter.
It's funny. Mike Hambrick mentioned chipmunk voice speed listening to podcasts, right? So like listening at double speed. That's a thing. Like I don't know. I don't listen to podcasts very often, but apparently like a ton of people listen at like double speed.
The Apple Podcast app has the ability built in to go at 1x or 1.5x speed.
Robert, you sound so slow in person, because I usually listen to you at like 1.6 to 2x. But I'm not kidding.
I really got to slow it down next time. I'm going to be like, John, crazy, man. You're crazy.
Well, you have to record it really slow so everybody can even understand it at those higher speeds.
All right, guys. The hour is late, so we're going to head over to social media real quick. First, we've got Brother Donovan Colding, who is a member of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Washington, D.C. I was able to meet him at my lodge earlier this year. He says, in my jurisdiction, they've actually got a Masonic college that's geared to prepare brethren for leadership, whether it's the Worshipful Master's seat, the High Priest seat in the Red House, etc. But he does think that others in his jurisdiction would benefit greatly from a more focused curriculum for each of the individual elected and appointed roles in the lodge. And I think, you can kind of go either way as far as formality goes, and I think the middle ground is perhaps the best, a mix of mentorship and OJT, and then something formal from the Grand Lodge. Brother Ken Lotman down in Texas has shared with us his Grand Lodge's higher education programs and leadership programs, as they were. One of them is called the All Program, the additional Lodge Lights program, and it goes over lodge operations, the difference between stated and called meetings, laws and traditions, etc. But they also have another program. I gotta scroll down, and it's called the Life Program. Apparently, the Grand Lodge of Texas loves their acronyms, like almost as much as the government. And the Life Program is Lodge Instruction for Effectiveness, where they actually have a mentor series of books that you actually go through and have to stand proficiency on before you take certain seats. So that's a pretty cool way to do things. I love how the Grand Lodge of Texas has multiple avenues for brethren to explore when they're looking at getting into lodge leadership. Also, our friend and brother from Masonic Memes says, I used to laugh when the worshipful master told me he hoped I had officers just like me someday. Well played, Karma. Well played. And that is the lightning round of social media tonight. Let's go ahead and go around for our final thoughts, shameless plugs, and one thing that you would change about how your jurisdiction does lodge leadership training. Let's start with Mike the intern.
All right, so what I would change, if I could, with the way my jurisdiction does lodge leadership training, is, everybody knows this. I listen to a lot of Masonic podcasts. I mean, a lot. And I listen to the Masonian, or 357 Productions, out of North Carolina. And on their podcast, they talk a lot about a college down there called Wilkerson College, which is a Masonic college. They actually teach a day and a half's worth of classes. And then they also have the Davie Academy of Leadership, which is literally 4 tracks of lodge education for leadership and other avenues of Masonic education. But I mean, these are, the way they've talked about them, I mean, these are big programs. They're statewide. The Wilkerson College guys, they have courses in 3 different areas of the state on a regular basis. The Davie Academy, I know that one's a little more centralized, if I remember from their talks. But I mean, again, 4 tracks, one on history, one on history and traditions, one on lodge officer, one on Masonic leadership and approaching the East, and then another one on Masonic leadership, the Master Station. So, I mean, these are things that I would love to see my Grand Lodge take a look at and find a way of implementing something, at least approaching it. So.
Awesome. All right. Brother John from the Mobile Masonic Command, what you got for us?
All right, let's see. As far as wrapping things up, there's 2 schools of thought that leaders are born or leaders can be taught, and people fall in different categories. I think that if you really don't have an innate will to lead, then it's not for everybody. But I think that training can help improve someone's ability to lead if they so wish to follow that path. So I'm in that school that leaders are not born. No, you are naturally a leader, and you can actually improve it through training. And so I think having training, even bad training, sometimes is better than no training, because people are going to look for that to improve themselves in Masonry. So what would I do to change anything? I really think, I don't know, maybe it's just laziness, but I think making them kind of mandatory, that, you know, they take attendance and they really kind of make sure that you show up. Just because you show up doesn't mean that you met the minimum qualifications, I guess. Doing more that could be, I mean, there could be some stuff that could be done online, right? And to your point, if you read through the slot training straightforward, you don't need to have someone read it to you. I've seen it happen. I've seen someone get together for coffee and donuts, and all they do is just read through page by page. Having sent it to me by email ahead of time, that adds great value, right? Because I can read it ahead of time, come with questions, and actually have the conversation instead of reading it there live in person. So maybe that's one thing I would change, is having kind of a read ahead, make sure that, you know, people do their homework before they come in. So when you actually do assemble for leadership training, that it's valuable and it's you know, the time is well spent. So there you go.
All right, great. Brother Robert.
There I am. So I really feel like I wish there was some sort of a mandatory program in which just at least a warden's and master's class would be phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, granted, you know, when a new master mason comes into the lodge, and we kind of get this sense, hey, this guy is going to go for it. He wants to get in line, or even if he doesn't, but specifically those guys who do, we really try to get them to come with us down to Grand Lodge sessions so that they can sit through the administrative sessions, see how these work, and go to these little seminars and get a little taste of it, because this is something that's so far outside the norm of a normal lodge meeting, you know, just minutes and yada, 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 and we close. There's just some sort of substance to the education. I would really, if I could change one thing, it really would be to create a master's in wardens program that encompassed the leadership qualities specifically, because there's just not enough education on there how to do that. Granted, we're working on it, but I would like to see, with the attendance, as John pointed out, I would like to see that come through. Like, if you're, this is kind of, I'm going to predicate this on the idea of the progressive line. If we have a progressive line, you kind of know the senior warden's probably going to go to the east. So I want that senior warden to attend the class for sure. And if he doesn't, he can't go. He can't go into the east without that class. Like, I want to see that. And I want to, and to facilitate that, I want to get rid of this idea that, hey, I volunteered for this organization, I shouldn't have to go to this class if I'm going to sit in the east, right? Like, I don't need to do that, right? No, yeah, you do. Because at that level, you're administrating a lodge that, you know, in many cases, it's a 501c3 or whatever it is. It's a corporation. So you need to be serious about it. You need to take it seriously and really value that training and go after it. So that's what I think I would change. Thanks for watching. I just wanted to say thanks for everybody who watches Whence Came You. If you're unfamiliar, check it out. 9:30 Sunday nights. It's not live. I produce it. So, you know, it's chopped together pretty good. Check it out. And read the Midnight Freemasons blog. It's fantastic. Mostly because I don't do a lot of writing on there. I leave that up to the great guys. So thanks again.
All right. Brother Juan Sepulveda.
All right. I, you know my position on this. I think it's important that we little by little make improvements in our organization so that we have a little bit more attendance, a little bit more commitment. It's the only way that we're going to have a quorum, going to have enough people in lodge to pick from. You shouldn't have to be putting people in the east 2 or 3 times in their, in their lifetime. There should be new men that are capable, willing, and happy to sit in the east. And of course, it's the situation in which we're in. So little adjustments to make sure that this is an enticing organization to men. And I know some people might react like, well, we don't have to change Freemasonry to suit this new generation. And I would beg to differ. I think that we don't have to change the tenets of Masonry. We don't have to change the virtues associated with the craft. What we do need to adjust is the delivery that we choose to engage this new generation. And I'm one that I don't like people reading to me. I don't like necessarily people, interpreting things for me. I like to have good discussions with people. I like to have engaging conversations that will stimulate me to lead to a conclusion. So if you give me the materials and we agree on meeting at a certain time, we'll discuss it and we both grow in the process. So one thing that I would change if I could, officer leadership training is offered in Florida, would be to make it more contemporary, to make sure that there are tools utilized, multimedia tools like video, audio, to make it more engaging. So that's the only thing I would change. And if I didn't have, because I have the capacity to do that sort of stuff, if I didn't have so many things on my plate, I would focus on doing that. But it's a matter of time before I get more involved in making some of that happen locally. So as I say goodbye, thank you all for listening, for watching, for interacting. Thank you for Brother Joe Martinez, Andrew Penner, Robert Mejia, and Brother Jared from Kentucky for joining us in the conversation on YouTube. We appreciate to see you guys participating, asking questions, making comments. It makes it very lively. Octavio is there as well. So thank you all of you for participating. And for those who asked me about the shirt, you go to freemasonryart.com. I'm not going to model because my makeup lady didn't show up today, but I have secrets. Go to freemasonryart.com and pick this one or pick the one that John is wearing, the Memento Mori. And while you're there, sign up for the monthly Masonic Mystery Box, which is going to be a treat in August. Thank you, brothers.
All right, thank you, Juan. Yeah, if you're interested in an official Masonic Roundtable T-shirt that we were all sporting at the 300 event, you can go to freemasonryart.com and pick yourself up one there. Juan's T-shirt designs are absolutely incredible, so go ahead and check it out. You won't be disappointed. So I've already alluded to this a little bit earlier today in tonight's show, where I said the one thing that I think we can improve as far as leadership training and education goes is teaching the hard leadership skills, conflict resolution, arbitration, just really good, solid skills that I think are being taught more and more in the corporate world, but at the same time, need to be embraced at the lodge level in order for the lodge to function properly and function appropriately. Because invariably you're going to get into conflicts, especially as master of the lodge, and you're going to need more than just innately learned people skills in order to survive your year. And it's like John said, it's both a little bit of what you know innately, but it's also how much you're willing to be taught and how much you're willing to be trained on leadership and conflict resolution, etc. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching the show. It's great to have you all with us tonight. Thanks so much for engaging in the conversation. Again, like Juan said, both on Facebook and on the YouTube chat, we do try to keep up with all of those as the show is running and give everybody their due diligence during the social media time. So we're really, really glad that you stick with us week after week and engage us in the conversation, because this conversation shouldn't be just about us. It should really be about all of you, and please keep the conversation going and spread that light to others. So we'll be back next week. We've got something fun brewing sometime in the future with I won't say the brother's name, but it rhymes with Eric Diamond, and there might be a Jason Van Dyke in there as well. So we're in early stages of doing some stuff there, but we'll keep you in the loop. And thank you so much for spending your time with us. Thanks for watching, and keep searching for more light. Good night.